Located in the heart of Indiana is a city called Kokomo, a place that many have never even heard of. It's a small city that hosts a population of just under 60,000 people. But although it's a small place, not known to many, it has been dubbed City of the First. The city of Kokomo obtained this nickname by being the first to do a lot of things. Such as in the 1800s, it became one of the pioneers of the automobile manufacturing process. Fast forward to the 1960s, and it was the first to house the first McDiner. Yes, a McDonald's with a diner on the inside. The plan was to serve dinner outside of its normal menu. However, this was a massive failure, and they would ultimately convert those restaurants back to their original state. Sadly, in present day, the city of Kokomo is known for the disappearance of a teenage girl. A disappearance that would rock this city to its very foundation. And when the final pages of the story was written, it would leave more questions than answers. September 26th, 1998. The world would make way for Karena McClerkin. She would be born to her parents James McClerkin and Marlena Smith. She would spend the majority of her upbringing in Kokomo, Indiana, with her parents. However, this relationship wouldn't work out, and they would ultimately be separated. After separation, she would spend her time back and forth between her father and her mother's home, but she would be predominantly raised by her father. Karina is described as a person who was very outgoing. She was also outspoken, but although she didn't have a problem putting you in your place, she had a soft side. She's someone who's described as a real friend, someone that had your back no matter what. Karina would also receive her education in Kokomo, with her last stop being at Kokomo High School. However, upon entering high school, things with Karina began to change. A child who was once eager to learn began to slack on her grades, and her behavior began to slip. But along with her behavior slipping, she would also begin smoking and drinking and hanging out with an older crowd. When these changes began, she was under the care of her father, living with him. However, once he felt he had done all he could, he would send her to live with her mother. The plan was to send her to live with her mother, and hopefully, things would change. But they didn't. Upon moving in with her mother, her behavior only became worse. And by the age of 17, Karina would be heavily into drug use. And by September 26th of 2016, Karina would be 18 years old. And although she was using drugs, by this time of her life, she was ready for a change. Karina had discovered a rehab facility located in Florida. In fact, she had already begun filling out the paperwork. But before she could make it to rehab, something would transpire that would alter not only her life, but everyone around her. October 11th, 2016. Karina would speak to her grandmother on that day, and she would let her know that she was planning to attend a party with one of her friends. But on that same day of October 11th of 2016, Karina didn't return home. The morning of October 12th of 2016 would arrive, and there was still no word from her. At this point in time, the family has tried to contact her via cell phone, but her cell phone was going straight to voicemail. And after 2 full days had elapsed, they would officially report her missing to the authorities. Once the police were notified of her disappearance, they would begin to question her family and friends, trying to find any type of clue to lead to her whereabouts. Upon investigating her case, they would speak to a grandmother who would relay the information that she was supposed to attend a party on the night she went missing. With this newfound information, they would set out to find out exactly where this party happened, and they were able to locate it. And after speaking to the party goers themselves, they would testify that Karina did in fact attend this party. However, shortly before the party ended, the partygoers would testify that Karina was seen walking down the street on her own. But to make matters worse, no one at the party knew exactly where she was headed. And with this being the last known information about her, this would make the investigation that much harder. In light of Karina being missing, with little information to go on, the family would begin placing missing posters all over town. However, at this point in time, when it came to the authorities helping, they felt like the police weren't doing as much as they could. They felt like, due to her behavior problems and her lifestyle, the authorities were kind of just brushing it off. The missing posters would, in fact, be of assistance in this case. Witnesses would come forward and say that on the night of October 11th of 2016, Karina was seen at a gas station at around 10 p.m. The witnesses would also state that she would be accompanied at that gas station by an older gentleman, who they were able to track down. But once speaking with the gentleman, he told the police that he was up there with her. However, she walked off into an alleyway and got into an unknown car, and that was the last that he saw of her. Now, in light of this gentleman being brought to the surface, the authorities searched his home and questioned him even further. However, they didn't find any evidence that pointed to any wrongdoing, so they would continue on with their investigation. The days after the disappearance of Karina would begin to go by, and then those days would turn into weeks. And with the family feeling like they were the only ones truly looking for her, they would be forced to turn to the media in hopes to generate new leads.
Karina, outspoken, kind, very considerate, not very athletic, stubborn, a great person to be around. She just turned 18. She has an old future. There's merit she can do. She can still get her GED. She can do anything she possibly wants. She don't want to be out here in these streets. She made this comment. She wants to come clean. She wants to be right. She wants to do what she's fully capable of doing. So help me bring her home.
After the family contacted the media and got her story aired, the media would, in fact, turn to the authorities in order to question them. The authorities would tell them that they had, in fact, questioned several people and conducted several search warrants. However, this didn't pan out. Nothing new was learned, and it was still an ongoing investigation. The weeks would slowly begin to turn into months. And month after month, the family would be fighting to find their loved one, but they weren't any closer to finding her. During the course of these months passing, new tips would come into the authorities. However, nothing panned out. It turned out that they were no more than rumors, and the truth about the whereabouts of 18-year-old Karena McClerkin was no more than a mystery. The year of 2016 would come and go, and then 2017. But it was the same old story until the month of July of 2017, when the police would seem to catch a break in the case. A body of a young woman would be found floating in the Kankakee River, located in Illinois. This victim did, in fact, match the description of Karena McClerkin. Although it wasn't the news that the family was hoping to hear, it was still a break in the case, And if it was her, they could at least give her a proper burial. But when the police went to identify the victim, it turns out that it wasn't Karena McClerkin. And this put the case back at square one. The month of July would pass, and then August, and then September. And then before you know it, it was October 11th of 2017, officially the 1-year anniversary of Karina going missing. But although their loved one hadn't been returned home, they hadn't let up. They were still stomping the pavement, doing any and everything they could to return their loved one home.
A pink balloon ascended, and Jerry McClerkin wistfully hoped that somehow, some way, it could provide the direction she should follow to find her granddaughter Karina, who, if she is alive, would now be 19 years old. The grandmother and her friends walked the streets with placards and a promise.
I'll do whatever I have to help them. I mean, it's raining today and we're out here walking, and we'll walk, like she said, in the snow, rain, I don't care what it is.
Karina was last seen October 11, 2016, walking in the 1000 block of South Washington Street.
It's just tore this family apart. We want Karina back, one way or the other. And I implore you, if you know anything of Karena McClerkin, please come forward and let us know where she is. That's all we want. We want Karina back, one way or the other, so this family can have peace.
McClerkin and her friends believe they've walked 500 miles in and around Howard County on their search. Police have been busy too.
And we've gotten several different locations over the past year that we've searched, and they haven't been fruitful, but that is not discouraging us from continuing to pursue leads, any and all leads, until we do have resolution to this case.
With all this attention and the relentless quest by her family, is there any hope that Karina is still alive?
I'm not sure. I just want her home either way, because her grandmother is suffering. The town is suffering because, you know, nobody knows anything. Nobody's coming forward.
The last thing my granddaughter said to me, and she held my hand, she said, "I'll be all right, Mama. I'll be all right."
McClerkin says her health has deteriorated in the last year, but not her resolve. She says she's going to keep searching, keep hoping. In Kokomo, Derek Thomas, RTV6.
Just like the year of 2016, the year of 2017 would come and go. By June of 2018, the case was still at a standstill. It has now been almost 2 years since the disappearance of Karina, and there was still no new information. But the family was hoping that putting out this reward would encourage others to come forward. When the reward was announced, it did the trick. Tips began to fly into the authorities, but nothing that came in was of any significance. It seemed that people were only calling in tips, hoping to cash in on the reward. Every tip that was called into the hotline led them nowhere. But in the midst of all the tips that were leading the authorities on wild goose chases, one tip would come in that seemed promising. A tip that would come from an inmate that was locked up in the area. A female would come forward and said that she had information about the whereabouts of Karena McClerkin. She says that she has first-hand knowledge that Karina was murdered by a drug dealer, and she even knows what happened to her.
A voice from behind bars says she thinks she knows the whereabouts of a missing Kokomo teenager, Karena McClerkin. This follows our story on Friday about the teen's family offering a $50,000 reward. Working for RTV6's Derek Thomas talked to the woman and went to police to find out whether they are investigating her tip.
49-year-old Renee Murphy knows about jails and crime. She's serving time for violating her home detention for a dealing heroin conviction. And she says she's been told by inmates and other sources what happened to 19-year-old Karena McClerkin, who has been missing since October 11, 2016. She says the teen's dope dealer had her killed.
Karena had stolen some drugs from him. How he had paid another individual to give her what they call a hot shot, which is basically either bad dope or way too much, so that she wouldn't survive it.
This Garden Inn is now closed, but according to Murphy, back in 2016, McClerkin was given a lethal dose of illicit drugs and died inside that hotel.
They wrapped her in a car cover, and then they took her out and they threw her in this pond.
When this tip was relayed to the authorities, they claimed that they checked it out. However, the media would reach out to a neighbor of the corresponding area. But he says, yes, the authorities came to that area, but they never searched anything.
They was up here on the hill talking about there could have been a girl had overdosed, and she's back here buried somewhere. So
Did they ever look?
no,
No searching?
no searching at all.
Did that surprise you?
Yes.
If you know where Karena McClerkin is, you need to open your mouth. You need to give this family peace. You need to tell us what you did with her, what you did to her. We shouldn't have to be combing woods all over this town looking for an 18-year-old body. I'm asking you a couple of orders. $1,700. $1,700. You know information on where this girl is. Say it. The money is yours. No questions asked. Just tell us what you did with her. If you know what they did with her and you are hiding and keeping your mouth shut, then you're just as guilty as they are. You're just as guilty as they are. So, money talks. Let's let your mouth start doing some talking.
I used to be so young and free, but now
and tell us what the hell you did with Karena McClerkin.
Apple, say cheese. Say cheese.
She is a daughter, she's a sister, and she's loved and she's missed.
Rain is formed by choices before standing by the water. Seashore set the sails lower, the bridge, the princess still is sleeping.
I pray to God that the Lord weighs on your mind so damn heavily that you will have nothing but to confess your sin of hurting this girl. God have mercy on you. God have mercy on you.
I don't want their money. I just want these people to find their daughter, because I can't imagine. I don't want a dime of their money.
Is McClerkin somewhere out there? Police say the case is still open.
It has been said it's just a phase, like a rare smile on my face. I know what I could be, and I do struggle with destiny, and I get through. No wonder I feel blue.
2018 would pass. The reward did nothing to help the case. Then 2019, and then 2020. And it wasn't until the year of 2021 when the police would receive information that would break the case wide open. This information would lead them to 57-year-old Flint Vincent Farmer. But get this, 57-year-old Flint Farmer was also the guy who she was seen with at the gas station on the night of her disappearance. In light of this new information, 57-year-old Flint Farmer would be questioned again. But at this point in time, it was no more than a lead, and the evidence was missing, so he couldn't be immediately arrested. However, 1 year later, he would be formally indicted on murder charges. On July 18th of 2022, 57-year-old Flint Farmer would be arrested and booked into the local jail. But although they had their suspect in custody, they didn't release the new information that led to this arrest. 3 days after 57-year-old Flint Farmer would be indicted on murder, A tip would lead them to a rural area, and when they get to that area, they would in fact discover skeletal remains. The scene would then be processed and analyzed, and the skeletal remains would be transported to the coroner's office, pending DNA and autopsy results. Those skeletal remains would eventually be identified as Karena McClerkin. The police never released a cause of death in the case of Karena McClerkin, and I'm guessing it's because it was most likely found to be undetermined. Although 57-year-old Flint Farmer is now in custody for the murder of Karena, if you look far enough into those reports, you'll begin to realize that this case could have been closed years ago. And let me explain why. I mentioned the fact that Flint Farmer was in fact the guy who Karena was seen with at the gas station on the night of her disappearance. I also mentioned that his house was searched, but they said they couldn't find anything. Now, the reason why Flint Farmer's home was searched is because his neighbors reported that they saw Karena inside of his house on the night of October 11th of 2016. But get this, that wasn't it. On the night that the neighbors testified that they saw her over there, they also relayed the information that they heard a struggle going on inside of his home. It sounded like a fight, and then after the fight, they heard gasping noises, and then after that, complete silence. I did mention that his home was searched, and during this search, his home was cleared. On the day his home was searched, he told the authorities that yes, he saw Karena that night. However, she never came inside of his home. So at that point, if they found no evidence linking Karena to that home, it wasn't much that they could do. But it's what happened next which raises questions. In November of 2016, exactly 1 month after the disappearance of Karena McClerkin, Flint Farmer would be locked up on drug charges. He would spend from November of 2016 until November of 2018 behind bars. In the last year of Flint Farmer's incarceration in the year of 2018, they would begin monitoring his phone calls. And in one of his calls, he would speak to an associate, an unknown male. During this phone call, this unknown male would tell Flint Farmer that they hadn't found the body of Karena McClerkin yet. And then Flint Farmer replied to him, they won't find the body and that he needed to keep his mouth shut. That evidence in itself is alarming and should have been enough for a warrant then. But why wasn't he prosecuted? Well, there's a rumor around town that 57-year-old Flint Farmer was allegedly an informant for the Kokomo Police Department, which leads me to my next point. Informants being protected by the police isn't anything new. And while I can't say whether that allegation is true or not, I can say that he was the last person seen with her. The neighbors testify that they heard fighting and then gasping noises and then complete silence. Now, if you couple that with the fact that Karena McClerkin was last seen at a gas station at around 10 p.m. with Flint Farmer himself, well, that's even more damning evidence. But to make matters worse, I never mentioned they never released that surveillance footage to the public. But why wasn't that footage ever released? Whenever someone goes missing, the footage you see on the media is always the last captured evidence of them alive. However, they kept this evidence to themselves. So we have Flint Farmer being the last person seen with her at the gas station, in which they collected surveillance footage, so they know it was him. And then we have testimony from his neighbors that they saw her go inside of his home and then heard fighting noises, then gasping noises, then complete silence. Now add on to that while he was incarcerated, he was captured on the phone saying that the police would never find her body. But even with all of that evidence, it wasn't until the year of 2022 that an arrest was officially made. Now what gets me is that way before his arrest, they had enough circumstantial evidence to convict him. When someone young dies, the jury always wants someone to pay. And with the amount of evidence that was stacked against him, he could have been behind bars way before the year of 2022. I have personally seen juries convict people on a lot less. Which brings me back to the question of 57-year-old Flint farmer allegedly being a police informant and also allegedly being protected. Well, I can't 100% say he is, but the evidence suggests otherwise. And it's a strong possibility. And we all know how the situations with the police and informants go. They use you until they don't need you anymore. And then they find something to convict you on and put you away. Because once they dispose of you, your word is no longer credible. And anything you say that may even hint towards the fact of you being protected won't be taken serious. But hey, that's just my opinion, right? What happened to 18-year-old Karena McClerkin was truly sad. And for her family to have to fight for years for answers in this case, when the police had a suspect all along, is even worse. The trial of 57-year-old Flint farmer has officially started and is awaiting conclusion. Let's hope that she receives the justice that she deserves. Rest in peace, Karena McClerkin. Thank you for being a light for others.
It was real. She was never coming home. So it's kind of a wash. I'm supposed to be grateful that we are getting somewhere with this case. An arrest has been made. But she was still robbed her own time.
Walking in the shadows, landscape from the things I want to escape, knowing full and well I'll stay connected with my health. Stillness over the water, the traumatized, heavy water. I used to be so young and free, but now I'm bound by the bonds that be. I know what I should do, and I've known it for a long time, and I've only gotta do it. Brain is formed by choices before standing by the water. Seashore set the sails lower, the bridge, the princess still is sleeping. Serene unearthly winds are blowing, stones and dirt and clear eyes throwing. Clarity has vanished like some last breath on earth. It's just a phase, like a real smile on my face. I know what I could be, and I do struggle with destiny, and I get through. No wonder I feel